Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Sara Hudson. She's a HR benefits coordinator. What do you do, Sara?
I'm a benefits manager for a large organization that specializes in HR outsourcing services.
And
My
where are you at?
specialty, I'm in the Metro Houston area of Texas.
Go ahead. Tell us about what you're doing.
Okay, so I manage leaves and disability policies and programs for our mostly our U.S. population, which is almost 10,000 people, and then we have an additional 5,000 people globally that I support with some well-being activities and initiatives as well. So my day runs the gamut of often very emotional things, lots of opportunities to help and be impactful, which is why I got into human resources in the first place many moons ago. So my day can be a little routine at times, or it can be the opposite of routine. If there's like an emergency or a big situation that's worthy of kind of stepping back and determining how best we can support one of our employees, no matter where in the world they are.
So let's talk about you're working for an HR outsourcing firm. So you have internal things and also you're supporting other companies with their HR needs.
So my specific role is internal HR only,
Okay.
but the kinds of things that I do are services that we sell. So we sell services like payroll administration, benefits administration, pension and 401k administration, as well as HRIS for people who are familiar with the workday tools and cloud services. Um, we do some of that as well, and even other HR services around recruiting and talent development. Um, we can do a suite, and some of our clients have the whole shebang, and some of our clients only use us for one of those components. It really just depends on their needs as to what we provide.
Are these
But my
companies that
exact
are,
role,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, all sizes. We specialize in medium to large companies. So you think from hotel chains to hospital systems, popular brands that you would see on billboards on the side of the road and things like that. So I mean, it's something where in the millions of people that we end up supporting. Just again, depending on how their employer engages us.
And you were starting to say my exact role, and then I like somehow.
Yeah. But my exact role is I don't work with clients at all. I work only with our own employees, which we call colleagues. So I'll probably say that instead of employees. It's ingrained in me,
Mhm.
and so my job is to support our internal colleague population and others in HR, whether it's kind of like that strategic HR advisor for the business, or maybe our HR operations like call center that supports our own employees that are calling in with questions. I'm in because I'm in benefits, I'm part of the total rewards team, which most people think of as compensation and benefits, and that's how it is here. But then my other customers, if you will, could be people in our talent acquisition or talent development teams, as well as individual colleagues who may have a special need that I can help see to.
So if someone internally in your company needs to call for like a leave, like a
Mhm.
FMLA or something like that, you would be like the internal HR team that would support, and then the rest of the company is also HR, but they're basically being outsourced to help support other companies. Am I getting this right?
You're 90% of the way there. Yes.
What am I
So,
missing?
yeah, the only thing that you didn't hit on the head there is that my role is a little bit more strategic and overarching. So I manage our vendor relationship with, for example, our LOA and FMLA vendor, which a lot of our clients also use. So we kind of we don't go to market together, but and then we have other vendors that we kind of do go to market with. We consider each other like partners in that realm. So we have some vendors, they'll be able to approach our client and say, hey, since you're already working with this company, we have a special integration with them. If you're interested in working with us, we can kind of streamline that implementation and some things like that. So that makes it easy for me because we have a lot of people using the same service. So if I ever have a problem, like chances are our teams work through it with somebody else and vice versa. Obviously, as the company that's kind of behind it, we do a lot of piloting and we do a lot of kind of testing on our end using our own self as guinea pigs, which is both good and bad at times.
I can see that.
But yeah, so I more so manage our vendor relationships, and I then get involved with a specific colleague. Generally, if there's like an escalation, if there's a unique situation that our policy just didn't account for because nobody could foresee ever needing that, or maybe like it's just something really unique. And I'll give an example of that. So we have a very generous parental leave at my company of 8 weeks full pay.
Wow.
And yeah, so we have a rule that if you are the birth mother, you need to take it immediately following your disability leave. So you'll have 6 or 8 disability weeks and then your bonding
So
time.
that's 14 weeks total.
Or 16. And then if you have a C section, you get an extra 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then our dad's adoptive parents, any parent that's not the birthing parent, same sex partners, opposite sex partners, whatever, they get the 8 weeks and they can take it at any time, but it has to be consecutive. Like we don't have the administration and the task. We operate very lean. So when people take it, we need them to take it and then we need them to come back to work and have it be over.
So no
Um,
intermittent.
yeah, we can't do it intermittently. We just don't have the means to track it all with such a huge population. Um, some companies do. Maybe they have a little bit more staff than we do, but
Yeah.
that's how we have to do it here. But a prime example of a time we have made an exception to that would be like a mom whose baby is going to be in the NICU for a month or two.
Yeah.
And she's saying, you know what? At the end of my disability period, I really feel fine. The hospital's very close. I can pop in. Like maybe they work something out with their manager where they're, got a little bit more flexibility. And then they really want to take their bonding time when their baby comes home. And so fortunately, that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And that's the kind of thing that we're not going to build into our overarching policy, but we kind of reserve the right, to do the right thing
Yeah.
for people when this kind of situation comes about. So those are the kinds of times I get brought in to say, our leave administration vendor will say, hey, we have someone that's the policy's not exactly working for them, and we think there's a way that it could if you're willing to bend a little bit. So our vendor does a really good job of both, protecting our interests, but also looking out for our employees, and we really appreciate that.
Um, the whole idea of FMLA has been something that has been part of my conversation this week. I'm actually obviously traveling, and we've talked about this a little bit. You know this, but I'm traveling because I'm helping out a friend who just lost a loved one. In a, it would. I think that when there's like a prolonged illness, people anticipate, this, but the situation was sudden, and like so we're kind of like trying to find out and figure out like FMLA, usually you're supporting someone who's sick, a family member, but then can you take FMLA for yourself if you're struggling mentally, emotionally with this sudden change in your life. And like my friend's mother is helping support and trying to also take some time, and
Mhm.
it's a little complicated. And I think that the bigger the organization, the bigger team they'll have for more leniency. But it's tricky, especially when this is these are words you've never had to use before. You've never had to use these policies.
Yes, and the tricky part in FMLA as well is that it's not paid. So it's great that the job protection is there, that the time is there. Some people are in a position where they can take unpaid time off, and a lot of people, most people, are not. So that's where I'm seeing trends in the industry of offering more bereavement time, not so much tying it to the exact relationship. I think the last several years have shown us in particular, your family is who you make it, so I mean, yeah, if you lose your best friend, is that really so different than losing a sibling? Or so I see a lot of companies really trying to find ways to say yes, find ways to support. And when everyone's already working from home, like right now, or even jobs before, that had flexibility, it's kind of nice because you already have like some built-in flexibility to your day, and it's not so big of a stretch to say, in your case, I'm gonna go work, from another state for a little while or another city for a little while. And there's tax implications when people start moving around too, and we struggle with that a lot. When people move and they don't tell you, and
Hmm?
then you find out they've been inappropriately taxed for a while.
Yeah.
But for short-term things, a week here, 2 weeks
Hmm.
there,
Yep.
that's fine. So I'm really encouraged to see companies, again, I'll use the phrase like looking for ways to say yes to
Hmm.
support people. And I think in turn, again, I may have a little bit of a rose colored glass because of what I do for a living, but I feel like if you take care of people, they're going to try and do their best to stay productive and help their team. Not that they should do that ahead of their own self-care or family care, whatever they're doing. I just mean to say, I think it's a two-way street. If you're willing to support people, they're willing, to come at it in good faith, not take advantage of policies or check out,
Right.
if they're working on something urgent, just that balance of, everybody kind of being on the same team and trying to take care of each other. I think that's becoming more prevalent.
Well, if you don't take care of someone who is, under, extreme stress and bereavement, they might not be able to be competent at their job. They might bundle
Right.
something or bungle something, as they say, bumble. What's the right word?
Bungle is the word you're looking for, or they'll leave. And then you
Yeah.
have, again, if I'm just putting my HR hat on for a moment, then you have replacement costs and you have downtime. And it's funny, like it's not at all the same situation as losing a loved one, but when someone leaves the workforce unexpectedly, it's kind of like a little death. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of grief.
Yeah.
It's someone you were working with all the time. I mean, I'm closer to my little team of three that I work with than I am even to some of my girlfriends right now, just
Mhm.
because everything's been so strange and we haven't been getting together. And so, yeah, if one of us were to really quit unexpectedly or even give a standard 2-week notice, it would be a blow. So it's
And
in
you're
everyone's interest to
and
take
you're
care of people. And
scrambling and trying to cover shifts and things too. So then it puts
hmm
bigger strain on everybody.
hmm
Um, so I'm actually, I want to talk about this, even though this has nothing to do with you, but I'm actually staying in this little place. It was a old rundown hotel, like a Howard Johnson that these people renovated, and they turned into. It's basically like a little studio. It's like a small studio apartment or like a hotel with a kitchenette, more or less. It's got, well, not really. It's got a microwave and a mini fridge and some shelving and extra drawers and things. And then it has a Murphy bed. So I've got like a
Oh,
little couch over here. And then this big white cabinet behind me is actually my bed that folds
oh
down.
wow.
So they rent these out as either short or long-term housing options for like interns and grad students, and then people who are traveling. So they actually have some of these spaces included in like Airbnb. And do you say Verbo or VRBO? I don't know what's the correct way to say it.
I've heard Verbo on like the actual ads, so I
I
think
say
it's
Verbo, but someone
kosher to say
yesterday,
Verbo now.
the lady who actually like rented this place to me, I think she said VRBO, and I was like, wouldn't you know?
It's like the whole gift shift thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about what we were working on yesterday. So Sarah and I got into a call, and we've talked before, like what, 6 months ago or so, about a completely different thing. But yesterday you were trying to figure out your headset, right? You want to talk about your
Yeah.
headset?
Okay. I very much want to talk about my headset that was a delightful gift from Santa husband. Um, it wasn't even like he picked it up, though. I literally, it was like, this is the headset I want. Please
Hmm?
make it happen for me. So let me back up a little bit to talk about why my headset has been so life changing and important for my mental health. So I've been working from home for 11 years. And for the first like 2 or 3 years, I worked just off my regular tiny laptop. They aren't even like extra big laptops. They're like a little 15-inch screen. And I started working on this one project, and my manager said, "Do you not have an extra monitor?" And I said, "Well, that's a thing." Like, I mean, even though I was working from home, I'd been given a laptop at 5 o'clock on Friday and told, "Congratulations on your promotion. We'll start working from home Monday morning. At some point, please log in to make sure you can get on the VPN, have fun."
Oh.
And it never occurred to me to ask for another monitor because I mean, in the office, everyone worked on a desktop with a monitor, of course. And so I hadn't seen anybody using a laptop and a monitor.
Yeah.
And again, I'm already feeling so privileged, right, to be working from home. And I was making it on a laptop. That wasn't an issue until I got put on this project and I have all these spreadsheets. And I'm just like, this is getting kind of hard. So then they get me the monitor. And now, of course, everybody who's listening to this is probably like, I can never work without my second monitor. And I can't anymore. It's like working with only one eye or one arm or something. Anyway, all that to say, throughout the years, I used my landline for a long time for my calls because I could just put the call on speakerphone. I'd put it in my back pocket and I'd empty the dishwasher. I'd do some dishes, if I'm listening. Of course, if I'm participating, sit in front of my desk, but it
Yeah.
was just convenient. And of course, that way you can always call your cell phone. When you put it down, you can't find it. So that's nice too. And our VoIP historically did not have like a great reception. The calls would drop if you weren't hardwired in. And my home before now, or my current home, is just not wired in such a way that the Ethernet can easily be where I want it to be to work most comfortably. As you can kind of see, I have a dedicated office in my home. I'm very lucky to have a great setup here. I call it the situation room. So it's like kind of separate from the rest of the house. All that to say, I was foiled in my master plans because we moved to Teams in the fall. And so you had to dial in from your computer. They didn't even give us a number to dial in from. And I really didn't want to use my cell phone because I have that fancy tech shield in my roof. And so my reception's sometimes not good.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, like fine. So I dug up my headset, literally blew the dust off of it, And then I went, well, now I'm just tied to my desk all the time. I don't really like this. So I asked, a few work from home friends, like some people in some forums I'm in, and this one came recommended. I do like the headset portion. I don't like the over ear thing. It's just not my personal taste. I know a lot of people hate the headset component, but I'm also on the phone like 30 to 50% of the day.
And is it
So,
Bluetooth?
uh-huh.
Like we can see the wire for those of us that are on the video,
Because
but
it's
that's because
dead.
you're
Yeah.
charging it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this bad boy holds a charge for like 2 solid days. And
Yeah.
that's me on and off calls all day. So
Uh-huh.
I've not yet in the last 6 months had a day where I was literally on calls for the entire 8 hour. I mean, it's happened. But also sometimes, I could just unplug it and use my computer speakers sometimes, like if I kind of just need the break from something
But
in my
you
head.
could
So
basically
yeah,
go several days with using this on one
I
charge.
can, especially if I'm only on 2 or 3 hours a day. It seems to hold a charge really well. So of course, I normally just try to remember to plug it in every couple days at night, and I forgot to plug it in last night.
And I've actually been for the podcast, I've been using my, it's not the fanciest podcasting mic, but I usually have I'm pointing like this because it's usually like right here in the camera. I have my
Yeah.
big it's a Blue Yeti, and I have it like on a shock mount with the boom arm.
Oh yeah.
So I can get it closer. It's a little bit finicky, and that's one reason that everybody loves it, but it's working more or less, except for the time that my computer like overrode it and tried to make my AirPod microphone use. So I have 2 episodes from in the last 15 episodes that were actually it was right there, and instead it was coming from here, and the sound quality was really different. Today
Yeah.
I'm actually using my old Logitech headset that I had been using for the past 3.5 years for teaching English online. And I know it doesn't have like the same quality as my Yeti, but it also does have some like noise canceling features because I am I'm on this first floor of this little micro apartment building, and the parking lot is right there, and I know there's people that are coming in and out, and I'm like, mate,
Uh-huh.
I didn't travel with the big one. I was able to cram everything into a backpack,
There you
including,
go.
yeah, I was like, mouse, my external keyboard is with me. I have a ring light, and I've got my docking station, and all of the cords and connections that I might need. And I was really proud of myself for cramming it all into my suitcase as fast as I
I
could.
am also proud of you. And 2 of my neighbors are pressure washing, and 2 of my neighbors have their yard people here right now.
Oh, I can't hear.
So you could, yeah, apparently they cancel noise pretty well because it's almost distracting me. It's so loud on my end. So, but
Oops.
this is a Jabra 65. I think it ran something like 225.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very, very happy with it. And I see like there's refurbished. I don't know if this is a new one or a refurbished one.
Mm.
I don't care. I didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
That
gift, and it
that is
came. Husband came through, so I didn't worry about it.
That is definitely more than I have paid for mine. I think this one was like $25 when I got it 3 years ago. And when my kids started doing online schooling, I just, as soon as Amazon was like, it won't be 14 weeks before, because as soon as the pandemic hit, you couldn't buy a headset online. You couldn't buy
Yep.
anything. Like
Yep.
anything related to work from home materials was like gone. And
Hmm.
so we bought two, just like whatever the bottom of the barrel headsets were for my kids to do online school, and they promptly broke. Like within, I would say 2 months, they just broke.
Wow.
And yeah, like either the microphone or the headset function, like one of the other
Oh,
would not
wow.
work.
Good to know. I
Um,
guess you get what you pay for in so many
exactly.
ways.
And as soon as these became available again, I was kind of watching. I ordered three because I have three kids who were all doing online school, and I don't want like the
Oh,
echo
bless
going
your
through
heart.
the house because sometimes they would be in the same room as us. And I knew that they have noise canceling features. My husband's headset that he uses for work doesn't. And so I'm sure that every time like the kids open the door and say, Dad, they can hear. But
Yeah.
if someone's pounding on the door right next to me, I'm sure you all could hear it too. But it is nice to know that it's at least taking out some of the outside peripheral
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. It's been nice. And I'm also like, well, I don't know if lucky's the right word, but my husband cannot work from home. He works on site.
Oh,
And we've been also extremely lucky that our daycare has remained open this whole time. My kids
wow.
are 3 and 5, so they were 2 and 4 a year ago. Getting anything done
Little.
with any age child is
Yes.
difficult, but
Yeah.
especially the little one wouldn't even sit and watch TV at that
Yeah.
point. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't there yet.
Mhm.
So I have been incredibly privileged to really be largely unimpacted by those aspects of the pandemic.
Wow.
If anything, this summer was a little slow for me last summer.
Mm.
With everyone working from home, like people weren't requesting leaves, people weren't requesting disability accommodations because when you're at home, it takes out so much of it, right? You
Yeah.
don't need to miss work. If you feel a migraine coming on, like maybe just go lay down for an hour and then you just kind of come back, or you can just
Wow.
turn all the lights off and wear your sunglasses, which is in the office, you can't control those things. Or maybe it's more of like an anxiety function. Well, if you don't have to like get dressed and make up and get in the car and be in front of people, you're like, you know what, I can actually work today. So we actually saw a downtick in my personal volume. Of course, now everything's just insane. But
Really interesting. And I know that a lot of people out there are analyzing the pros and cons of work from home. And I wonder if, like, decision makers and companies would be interested in seeing the HR impact, like the paid time off and sick time, disability and FMLA, if that might work in the favor of the company.
yeah, I mean, like I said, we've seen like a 50% decrease in the number of people requesting like to even have an intermittent leave open. Like they either let it lapse, or we had people that potentially didn't open a new one because again, when you're home, you have a certain degree of flexibility. And of course, it depends on your job. If you're exempt, you probably have a lot, more flexibility in your day. We do have some hourly employees who can't really flex time the same. We have a large call center population. It's a little bit different.
Mhm.
But even that, even if you're feeling a little under the weather and you don't want to burn up a sick day, or maybe you're out of time and you would otherwise have to take the day with no pay. I think we've all been there where, again, if you don't have to get presentable and go in front of people, you can kind of truck along.
Well, I mean, I worked from home. I've worked from home for 12 or 13 years now. I think it's 13, including this past year, which definitely counts. Um,
Yes.
I, when you work in an office setting, especially when I was in healthcare, I was working at Mayo Clinic, like on site, right? And if you came to work with a cough, like a really bad cough, people would like stare you down with laser beams to be like, go
Yeah.
get out of here. I don't
Needs to
want your
go.
stupid cough.
Yeah.
And never come to work when you're sick and contagious like that. um, but when working from home for the next 10 years, I wasn't even on camera or on the phone except for maybe like a couple of minutes a whole shift. And so if I was like coughing my brains out, nobody would even know. Like
Hmm.
I could get my work
And you
done.
didn't get anybody else sick, even by accident.
Yeah,
you know.
if I had a fever or diarrhea or something,
Hmm.
as long as I could still get my shift done,
Right.
I could, you know, it, I could save that PTO for what if I got more
Yep.
sick or something like
Yeah.
that.
And kind of like I said before, that by no means is me implying, oh, you should power through
Yeah.
and put your job first. It's more like, yeah, when you can, you can. When you can't, you can't.
Mhm.
But if you're already at home and you kind of have some of those comforts and you can be in comfortable clothes and sipping some hot
Yeah.
tea, or like you said, whether it's running to the bathroom a little bit more often or muting
Yeah.
yourself so you're not coughing on people,
Yeah.
yeah, it helps you conserve your time off. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a department of one. So if I'm
Mhm.
out for the day, it's all just waiting for me the next
Oh,
day.
yeah. Yeah.
So even if I am like, if I could just do 3 or 4 hours, like kind of phone it in a little bit and keep some things moving, then the next day is not so painful,
Well, and
So
I worked nights, or I have worked nights almost all this time. And I, instead of lunch, I would always take a lunch nap.
yeah,
And so I had a
yeah.
60 or 90-minute lunch depending on the day. I
Oh,
advocated
that's
for
nice.
myself, and I got a flexible lunch when I had my third baby because I was willing to be the person who continued working overnights. It was just a few of us that did that. And
Yeah,
and I was like, so if I'm going to do this for you, will you do this for me? And they
yeah,
did. And so, like, if I was really struggling, I could lay down and take a 90-minute or 50, 75-minute nap,
yeah. Set a timer. Set a timer.
and yeah, oh, so many timers. And I even had a few friends on my team who I would be like, I am leaving right now. I'm due it back at this time. If you notice that I'm not back by this time, would
Please
you
call me.
send me a, yeah, ring me? And we were like burning the midnight oil together. And so we all, had lived that
Yeah,
life, and
yeah,
definitely covered each other, like woke each other up several times. And
yeah.
it was a team thing.
Well, and like you say, even now, like I'm on a team of basically three. So I have these two very small kids.
Mhm.
The another person has 3 kids, and her kids are like 6, 8, 10, somewhere in there. And then the other person has 2 kids that are just out of college and a high schooler. So like we're all in those different stages,
Yeah.
but we all know exactly what the other one's going through. Less so me, with the full understanding, but obviously, like it doesn't take a genius to kind of figure out how parenting a teenager has its own challenges too, right? And all the
Oh,
kids have
true.
like an extracurricular here and there or an illness here and there. And so, I mean, never once would any of us say, hey, I got to cut out early today. And the other one of the other two be like, oh, again, or, well, when are you going to come back? I mean, certainly if there's something really urgent, we might ask, like, should I, can I help? Do you need to work on something? Does this mean we're going to bump it to tomorrow? Just, kind of cover some bases.
Yeah.
But there's never ever been a time where I've felt like, or even in my prior job where we were on a bigger team, has anyone suggested that I shouldn't take the time that I needed, or that I should hurry up, or anything like that?
I've heard horror stories. I'm in some of these like Facebook groups. I'm old, so I use Facebook the most, I think. And like there are some out there that are specific for, people who work from home.
Yeah,
And you hear stories, like you hear is usually someone who has very like grown up children, like in their 20s and 30s, who forgot by then, I guess, like what it was like. Or it might be the person who's never, had, other
yeah,
dependents and responsibilities in that way, not being as understanding. So it exists.
yeah.
And I guess
It
my
does.
thought is, if you ever, have a change in your lifestyle and you end up, responsible for little humans,
Hmm.
you will
Or the way
call
I always
me
say it,
once.
I mean, it's not the same, but like, let's say you get in a car accident, you have a heart attack, you just have, maybe your family member has an emergency. Like we're all going to at some point need something. And no, it's not the same as a parent who maybe has something come up once a week, or different things like that. But I mean, I mean, I grew up never really planning to have kids. So, until I met my husband and was like, oh, okay, we can do this. I just always came at it as, if everybody has what they need, then who really cares? Like, I don't need to cut out early, so I'm not going to. And
Yeah.
but I've also never been in a situation where I really like had to pick up work for somebody else either. And I can completely understand where, if someone's needs actually end up really ruining another person's plans, like, two people are asking for the same day off and the parents are being given preference. Well, it doesn't mean that just because you don't have a child, you didn't have something really important to do that was
Yeah, of
important to
course.
you.
Absolutely.
And but again, I don't see that here. Right? I know that it happens. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a balance between, kind of, it takes a village, in support, and also, but again, I feel like, at least among us, because we're all working parents, we're very cognizant of, being away for a minimal time. Maybe you're doing a spot check on email, even though you're away, like just checking on an urgency. a large part of my job is making sure that people get their disability pay. So there's been definitely times where I've been off, but I hopped on my computer for 20 minutes to answer a question or get something done to make sure somebody's pay wasn't delayed. Because if it was me, that's what I would want somebody else to do. And I think that's the other like wonderful thing about working from home or just having the option, like even when we talk about hybrid environments and having that laptop to take home,
Mhm.
like if I had to go to the office to get somebody paid, I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do that when I'm on my day off or my week off.
On your
You
day
know,
off, yeah.
yeah, if I can walk down the hall and do it, absolutely. But I wouldn't drive 30 minutes to the office to do it. So it's in everyone's best interest, to have that flexibility.
I feel like as I've kind of watched the whole pandemic unfold, and even before, I've always been, since I work from home and I have for so long, and I was kind of on the, I mean, not the very cutting edge of it, but, my company did go home with a remote team before many did.
Hmm.
We had the full support for that.
Can we just talk about how I survived for 10 years without ever having a video call
Yeah,
quite successfully? And
yeah.
now we're acting like we have to be on video calls to do our jobs. No, we don't. No, we don't. Especially when people have small kids at home, especially when people are working from home when they did not plan on it and they might be in a one bedroom and they have a little corner with poor lighting and insanity, and maybe they're a spouse or partner also trying to work from home, or a parent or a sibling or whatever. And it's just like, are what I, what makes me even more infuriated than the bosses who are like, or the companies who are not giving daytime flexibility, is the camera mandatory stuff. Because I'm just like, that is so unnecessary. Like,
Hmm.
I think it's great that from time to time, say, hey, everybody turn your camera on for the first 5 minutes. Let's say hello, especially once we've all been home for a while. It is nice from time to time to have a video call like this one. Or I have a weekly one on one with my boss. And like every other week, we turn the camera on. Like sometimes I want to eat or like
Hmm.
have a bra on or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm just not feeling it. And you shouldn't have to because it's completely irrelevant.
And if your culture has dictated that everybody must have their camera on for the first 5 minutes, then they're still going to feel that need to be ready every single time. My
Yeah.
husband, and I've mentioned this a few times recently, he works for a company where just the way that they kind of did things is that even though they had video capability, I've only, like just passing through the bedroom, I've only ever seen like one person on camera in the last year. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens where I'm not in there very often while he's working, but
Yeah.
um, he has never turned his camera on. I think they had one team meeting where everybody did for like an icebreaker type, team building thing.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like a once a month, not every meeting, like
For
first
him,
five
it
minutes
was
of every meeting, but like,
once in a year.
yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to get to a little bit ago. I was going to say, it's been really interesting watching like the culture of everything kind of develop. And I know that a lot of employers are trying to watch that productivity. So we're talking about how, by having people at home, they might actually take less FMLA or, leave of whatever
Or
it could
work
be.
more hours. Yeah.
Yes. And we have to, there's the whole thing where some people are going to be inclined to work harder to try to prove themselves. And then there's another be the other people who might try to take advantage of things. And I feel like the people that the bosses, and especially if they're, you know, if they've been around for many years and have, lived through different, I don't know, iterations of like work habits and things, they feel maybe the need to be able to see everybody, and they need to know that they're being more productive at home. Where, you're talking about people take less leave, but are they getting more done? And I think even it comes down to the individual personality. Some
It
people are
does.
like, they'll never stand up because they're at home and they're just going to get work done and they can. And other people are distracted by their home. And so
Yep.
I don't think it's a blanket thing. Like, even though one team might be extremely productive, the next team might not be as productive.
Sure.
What I was going to say, though, for me personally, is when I had my first two kids, I did take my 12-week leave. I, I had the option to come back and do some work if I wanted after 6 weeks. I was allowed to do intermittent, like PTO for, whatever. And I like, yeah, I might want that extra money. But when I had a baby in my arms, I was like, this is more
Never
important right
mind.
now. When we had our third child, though, it was a different situation. My husband was in the middle of a long job hunt. We he was looking for work for 15 months when he had his when he graduated. And it was a difficult time to find work, and the whole way that the hiring process has changed and evolved over time, was a little surprising for us. In that you could apply for 150 jobs and get
Hear
really
back from
far
4.
in the interview process, and people don't even let you know if you were selected or not. And so you're still waiting and wondering, and
Yep.
they don't even send letters anymore like they used to 20 years ago. Uh, but with the third kid, she was born, and I was like, I think I was back at the desk within 3 weeks. And
Oh,
the
wow.
only reason that was possible was because I worked from home. My
Yeah.
husband was there caring for the kids. And that was when I had negotiated that 90-minute lunch. So I had two 15-minute breaks. And then it was a production. I was doing medical transcription. So it was very production based. You had to keep your numbers up and your accuracy high. But having that flexible lunch basically made it possible for me to
Right.
get back to work within those 3 weeks, because I could slip away and take a 15-minute and go help the baby. I was breastfeeding, which is, really time consuming.
Yep.
Because I was off camera, there were a few times that I laid a pillow across my lap
Yep.
and, took care of the baby that way for a few minutes until, she was calm and I could get back to it and then take my 90-minute lunch and, go lay down for a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that flexibility, I couldn't have done that. And it was actually at the time, I think, when my company really needed the extra help. And so I'm thankful.
So it was a mutual benefit. You needed the money, they needed the help. You
Yeah.
needed what I'll call an accommodation,
Mhm.
not legally an accommodation, but certainly an accommodation that just worked for everybody.
Yeah.
And so why not?
You know,
I mean, it's one of those things where if you don't ask,
mhm.
you can't get it. So you
And it
might as well
was my
ask.
third kid. And so, like, the first time I had a baby, my body took a really long time to recover. And even if I had wanted to come back before 12 weeks, my body
Yeah.
was telling me no, like, this isn't possible. You
Mhm.
need to heal. The pregnancy, the
Yeah.
labor and delivery was very long and drawn out. And when I had my second and third kids, I bounced back faster. And
Mhm.
when I had my third kid, I was like, I really feel like I can do this without hurting myself. I really feel like I can
Yeah.
handle this
Yeah.
now. And we needed it. And it worked. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
talk about you working from home. I've been jumping in a lot here.
Yeah. So I
How did it
my
start?
second kid, yeah, my second kid just did something to me. I don't know what's good because ever since she was born, I'm having a little bit harder time focusing.
Hmm.
But by and large, I mean, partly because I'm used to working from home. Like I go to the office from time to time. Like if I hear there's a potluck or something, I got
Hmm.
priorities, and I'll stop in there. Or it's been a couple times, they're doing construction down the street. They blew a transformer, pack a bag, run in for a little while, so I don't get behind, something like that.
How
And I
far
can do that
are
because the
you?
office is really close. It's maybe like 10 miles. It's like 20 minutes. It's not, it's probably 5 miles. So it's like 25 minutes, to pop over there. It's not a big deal at all. And so, I mean, there's a couple times I had to wash my hair before I left the house because I
Yeah.
wasn't planning on being in front of people. But I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times that's happened. Usually, if I'm going in, it's because I want to, and it's a nice change of pace to be around some people. But it's none of my people. My people are all 1,100 miles away. So, because I worked in the office for a few years when I used to work in our call center before I came into HR, like I know enough people that I can usually find somebody I know to kind of set up next to, find an empty desk and be able to just, have a little bit of human interaction, which is nice. I don't miss it like I thought I would, though. I will say, when I first started working from home, I thought this will be fun for, a few weeks. And then I'll go in the office a couple of times a week. No, it turns out that was my jam. And part of it's because I'm not a morning person. Part of it, I think, is also because I've been really intentional about building my relationships with people. So I feel like I know them just as well as I would if we were in the same state
Oh
and
yeah.
working, and maybe better because of that intentionality. Because if I just knew they were there all the time and I could talk to them whenever I wanted, I probably wouldn't. Whereas like, I'm the one that's out of sight, out of mind, and most of them are all together at like
Okay.
our headquarters. So I really felt like I had to kind of remind people I was here.
Yeah.
Not even so much for like the career opportunity component, but just like because of what I do for a living. I want to make sure people know how to reach me and they know what I can do, and they know when I can help. And so that served me very well. It's part of the reason I got this job um,
Did you
7 years ago.
did you just say that they are together like on site, 1,100 miles away?
Not anymore. They're all home now.
Okay. Go ahead.
But
So talk
yeah.
about this job.
So when I transitioned from the call center to my first HR job, I was on a team of like 15 and we all worked from home.
Mhm.
But a lot of them had been in the office together for many years before they went virtual, like a year or two prior.
Yeah.
So again, like I'm the only one in Texas. I mean, there were people in a few different states, but they all really knew each other already, you know. And so I was kind of breaking in. So it was a new role as well that hadn't existed before. So, I mean, they were really excited about it, and they were really excited about me. Apparently, toot toot, they loved my interview, so they were excited to have me. It was an internal move, so I mean that part was all great. But there were times I would like ping somebody and kind of ask the question I already knew the answer to, or just say, "Hey, I have this right," even though I was pretty sure it was right, or just kind of some of those check-in things to give me just like a reason to touch base. Because again, if you're not going to bump into somebody in the hall and because my job was different from theirs, I didn't have a lot of opportunities always to reach out to people.
Okay.
So it might be I'd work closely with like 3 or 4 people over the course of several weeks, and then there are these 3 or 4 other people that I haven't talked to in almost a month. I'm like, that's weird. I'm just going to go ahead and just reach out, or even
Initiate.
sometimes just say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in like a month. How are you?"
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, because you get an idea for people who like chit chat and people that don't,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So that served me very well. And in the course of that, I ended up developing also a relationship with our legal team because of some things I happened to be working on the leave side before leaves was my job. And that relationship is what got me this job, which is the job that got me out of debt and the job that made me a grown up, and
Yeah.
everything like that. And in October, it'll be 7 years that I've been in this particular role doing leaves and absence, which is now also well-being. It wasn't in the beginning, but it is now, which is fine because I like it. But even, I mean, today, 15 years at the organization next month, 10 years, 11 years in HR, I'm still employing all those same tactics to just like build those relationships and maintain them. And I think with everyone being home, um, like easier is not the word, but it's not as weird for me to just be like, "Hey, how are you doing? What's up? We haven't talked in a while," because that's what
Okay.
everybody's having to do
Yeah.
now. But it's not something I had to develop the way that other people probably have because it was already how I was working. So for that also, I've been thankful for my pre-pandemic experience to power me through the last 18 months, because all those skills have served me very well.
What happened 11 years ago that got you working from home?
So, um, I had a situation where I had to actually consult with our internal HR team over like a workforce relations issue, like an investigation issue that had come to my attention. And so I had to provide some information, and they had to like interview me and stuff like that. And then what actually happened was the guy that sat next to me, I was in a standard cubicle, at the time in the office. And the guy next to me was like really jonesing to get out of that particular job. I mean, I was over it too, but my boss had just retired. And I was kind of doing some of her job and mine. And I was a couple months away from finishing grad school, 6 months away, one semester away from finishing grad school. So I was like, I can worry about this in the new year. It's like the May, June timeframe. And my cube mate slides a piece of paper onto my desk, and he was like, "Hey, I check the job board every Monday morning because I'm trying to get out. This job's not for me, but I feel like it was literally written for you. You should go apply for it." And I was like, Okay, I'll look at it, later." So fast forward to like Thursday morning, because usually jobs are only posted for like a week or two. It's not
Yeah.
forever. At least then they were. Now it seems to be dragging out a little bit. But anyway, so he comes back to my desk like Thursday morning, and he literally sits and he goes, "I'm not moving until I see you log on and at least read this and click the apply button. And what you do after that is up to you." I was like, okay. And so when I finally took the time to look at it, I was like, "Oh my God, this job really was like literally tailor made for everything that I bring to the table." So I threw my hat in the ring, never dreaming. And I found it after the fact, like 200 people applied for this job. And um, but the reason I had kind of a leg up is it totally coincidentally, a month or two before, I'd had to engage with them, and they, remembered my name and were like, "Oh, she conducted herself well. She had handled this situation well." And then, in my resume. I knew I was completing my MBA. So had this like totally random connection that obviously helped me, kind of get a leg up among those hundreds of people that applied. And then this job uh, opened up, and it was like 2 levels above where I was at the time. And I knew I wasn't qualified for that. So I wasn't even going to, put my name in the hat for it. And I wasn't even sure I wanted the job. I didn't know if I wanted to focus on LOA and different things like that. I liked the varied nature of what I was doing at the time. But again, I really didn't. No company internally bumps somebody 2 levels. That just doesn't happen. But it seemed like nobody was applying for the job because people hate doing leaves. People hate it. People that do leaves, we have like a sickness that this is what we like to do. For most people, they would just rather pull their own fingernails out with a plier. They just hate leave of absence.
Is it because it's
It's
like you
messy.
said earlier, it can be emotional, like
I think it's the mess more so because you have your federal laws, then you have your state laws, and even in some case you have a city law. And a lot of the time, um, a lot of the time people are gaming, people are abusing, and they get frustrated by the fact that the way the law is written, which is designed to help people, and it doesn't leave the employer any recourse when you know very well someone's abusing it. And of course, I want to be very, very clear that's the minority, right?
okay.
Most people take the leave they need, they come back, they do whatever, even when it's intermittent. They take the time they need, they're at work when they don't need to be away because it's not paid. So they don't really have any incentive to be away. Some people clearly just get a job for the insurance and then, immediately request leaves and, don't make any effort
Wow.
to like engage and figure out how they can still be productive. I don't know how they afford it because they're like never here.
I
I digress.
I never
But
used
that's
it.
why people don't like it.
I think in my entire 17 years that I was with Mayo Clinic, I only remember, other than taking my PTO, and I actually sold my PTO often. I didn't even take my time away. I was
Mm-hmm.
in a job share position for a long time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I already had every other week off.
Oh,
And
that's
then
nice.
I would cover this lady. She was a snowbird, and so she'd go down to Arizona, ironically, because that's where I live now,
Yeah.
for like 3 months, 4 months out of the year sometimes, and I would cover her. And then in the summertime, when I was doing I was camp counseling. I think they called it dorm staff, but I was working with a youth church, and I was just like doing a lot of like volunteer type things. And so then she'd cover me. Um, Nobody
That's
wants
an
to be in
ideal setup.
Arizona. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
be in Arizona in the summertime, so she was available. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I had I had a immediate family member who had a crisis when I was only about a year into that job. That I probably just took PTO. I might not
Mm-hmm.
even known that family medical leave of
Nor would it have mattered because you
absence
would have had to use your PTO anyway.
first. Yeah,
So,
and it wasn't until my mom had a health crisis. Like it was 2015. I was pregnant with my third kid, and that's the first time I really ever remember talking with my supervisor and being like, "My mom
I
needs me
might need
urgently.
leave.
I'm getting on a train tonight, and I don't know when I can be back." And as long as I touched in with her, to kind of like extend that time, and just she made it clear that I could possibly lose that opportunity if I didn't, convey, what was going on every like 3 days. I think she needed um, just to know if I was extending, because I didn't know when I was going to go home again. And she was
Mm-hmm.
just really wonderful to work with. Probably one of my favorite supervisors, partly because of how well that went. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know that that
Mm-hmm.
was an option for, and that was,
Yeah.
I think that was like 15 years in before I ever
Yeah.
had to use that. So there's going to be those of us that definitely don't abuse it, until you start to have, a really big
Mm-hmm.
crisis.
And that's not abusing it. That's using it in the way in which
Using
it's
it
intended.
appropriately.
And that's one of the biggest struggles we have is manager turnover is high. At least at our organization, we have a lot of new managers all the time.
Mm,
You can get everybody trained up, but then they leave or they promote, and so then we have another manager coming in. So it's hard to keep managers really up to date on all of the leaves so they can point people, because on average HR is not going to know when something's going on, nor do we need to know. Like,
right. Of course.
we really, managers the front line. But all that to say, nobody was applying for the job.
Mm,
So I'm on my way to happy hour and I get a call And somebody says, look, no one's really applying, but I think you'd be a shoe in. I was like, but this stuff. So we started talking about it, and we talked to the other side of HR that handles that kind of thing, and they were like, well, what if we split the difference because you're not ready for the role as it's posted.
Okay.
But what if we bring you in like at this dollar with this, and then probably 2 or 3 years from now, you will be at that level,
That's
and we'll
awesome.
and that's how it happened.
Yeah.
They brought me in like halfway between my salary at the time and the salary they would have given an external hire that met all those
Mm-hmm.
qualifications. And yeah, it took three-ish years to get, but I thought that was fair. I
That's
was
a
I was
great
not,
solution.
yeah, I thought it was wonderful, and it took the pressure off me too. Because I mean, I'm good at my job. I was good at it from the start. But I wasn't that level of good, and the intuitiveness, and again, like the strategic overall thinking. Like I needed time to build those skills.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, now that I've had 7 years in this job, I'm beginning to be concerned, about the specificity of what I do and thinking about, okay, what's next?
Okay.
So my boss has been after me for since before my first child was born in 2014, 2016. What do you want to do next? Because he was very, very passionate about my career development. And I was like, man, no, I got a baby. Now I have another baby. I was like, I'm not worried about that right now.
Yeah.
So now that my kids are 3 and 5, I feel like I have some room to kind of take a breath and finally start thinking about that. So
Now
it's
that my
stressful and I don't really
3-year-old
like it.
will watch TV, I
Yeah,
can
now that
start.
she will watch TV, my life, I have a new lease on life. But
But you said they're in like a
but they're
daycare
in daycare.
program.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have to worry about them being underfoot during the day. It's a random sick day or something like that,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. But that's a new thing.
So you've talked about your headset, you've talked about your monitor. Do you have anything else that has made your life easier
Okay.
working from home?
I call it my whiteboard of shame. Not that anyone should have shame in whatever they need to be successful. But first I purchased a 2 foot by 3 foot whiteboard that I do use to like track, because if it's not in front of me, it doesn't work. And so I've tried to embrace OneNote. I use Outlook tasks, but this is like $20 on Amazon. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have my very fancy mini narrow whiteboard. It sits right between my laptop docking station and like you, I have
Oh,
the
yeah.
wireless
So can
keyboard.
you describe it for the people who are only listening on the podcast?
Oh yeah. So it's about maybe it's like 18, 20 inches wide and about 5 inches tall. So it's about the size of your standard keyboard. And again, like depending upon where someone might need their monitor, I mean, or their laptop, however your setup is, it works perfectly for me that I have it like right in front of my laptop, right up above my keyboard. So, and then I keep a blue and a red marker nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if somebody needs something from me today, um, then I can like quickly write it down. It stays in front of me. Or if there's something I want to make sure I follow up on tomorrow, because of course I still have like random to-do lists and things like that. But it really helps me keep track of the most urgent things that are going on right now.
What do blue and red signify for you?
It just is a visual for me, because if it's all the same color, it all kind of blurs together in my
Mm-hmm.
head. So I don't even use like blue for urgent or red for urgent. I just kind of alternate just so
Okay,
that
visual.
visually it just kind of triggers
Yeah.
something when I look down, just to have the contrast.
So do you like wipe it off when you complete that task, or what's your
And
method?
that is why I like it so much, because it's like a poor man's rocket book, right? So so if I have like my regular to-do list, that I'll put on screen right here, it's just my regular whitepad. Well, when I start turning the page one is forgotten about. If there's something on page one that didn't get done, I either need to remember to write it again on the next page, or I forget about it. And
Oh,
I
you
can
have,
tell you that
yeah.
98% of the time, I'm just going to forget about it.
Yep.
So this way, it's always fresh. I just take my finger and I delete, I erase what I've already done, and then that kind of leaves room for the next thing. So when my whiteboard gets full, that is also my visual cue to stop what I'm doing as much as possible, take a minute. I either transfer them to like my calendar for the next day where it can pop up and remind me like every hour, or just do it where that's possible.
Take
Or
it off.
something else,
Yeah.
because when you have 10 urgent reminders for today, then like none of this cannot all happen
This is
today.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's been a very unexpected benefit that it's kind of helping me on the days where like I've realized I've kind of not even overcommitted because right there are things that you decide I'm going to try and get this done today, and that's different than when you've actually promised to somebody else. But like I said, particularly because I deal with people's pay at times, there are things that are time sensitive, like before a payroll cutoff date, that I want to make sure I resolve, and it kind
Mm.
of it's a nice visual, a nice practical. I mean, it was totally inexpensive. So it's been the best professional decision I've made in 2021 was purchasing that little bitty whiteboard to go in front of my keyboard. And if that's just not indicative of the last 18 months, I don't know what is.
I like it. I might need to get one.
It's great.
I've found a few things that help, but with my workflow right now, I'm kind of in between like teaching ESL, but not as many hours as I used to. And with that,
Mm-hmm.
basically, I just had to make sure I got to my computer in time for my first class, and then
Yeah.
it just did for the next 10 hours. I would just teach.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked that. It's when I was a secretary that it got tricky because I was managing a really busy surgeon, not only his taking his phone calls from all of his patients. I worked in urology, so I'd get
Oh
these men
gosh.
calling me to talk about their parts
Yeah.
every day and
That's
their
special.
pee. So it
Yes.
was really
Of
fun and
course.
interesting, and actually sometimes amusing. Um, not in a creepy way or anything, but just they're very urgent. They're very urgent
But
matters.
yeah, yeah. I could appreciate if you're needing to contact a urologist, it's not a casual issue
Yeah.
most of the
And
time.
so I would be getting calls, but I was also needing to manage like his travel calendar and like booking
Yeah,
flights.
yeah,
And like I had never booked a flight to, Beijing before. And
yeah.
how much time does it take to drive across Paris to get to the other airport, because that's the only
Mm-hmm.
option. And then also
Mm-hmm.
needing to get like his paper PowerPoints printed off and sent to Hawaii for some presentation, and managing the priority of the guy who has surgery the next day and needs to know that he cannot blah, 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 something before
Right.
surgery. But
And
I
making
also,
sure the surgeon makes it back in time for the surgery and
um,
managing the travel calendar.
there were some very competing priorities, and you'd have to be like, which one is the most urgent? And so, yeah, I
Yes.
had a system on paper that was imperfect, but definitely helped me
Right.
get it through.
I mean, I have things that have been on my to-do list for literally 4 years. 4 years. I'm like, one day, it's one of those like, kind of like process improvement-y kind of things where it's like, look, it's not broken right now, but if I ever have a minute, I'm going to see if I can improve this part. And it just mocks me. Sits there on my
It's not
Outlook.
on your
I
whiteboard,
do
is it?
no, I would never besmirch my whiteboard with those couple of awful tasks. There's 3 or 4 of them. It's shameful. But I use my Outlook tasking, and I just put them out a month. Every couple months I just put it out another month, and I think maybe next quarter I'll do it.
Right. But I feel like those reminders, like, I feel like my brain turns off when I keep seeing them. I have those things too. If it's not a unique way, like if it doesn't come in a different way, it's like hitting your snooze button when you're mostly asleep.
Yes.
Like, did that even
And
happen?
that's why I just put it out for a month, because there's no
Uh,
point in hitting like the 5 minute or the hour reminder
yeah. Yeah.
for a week. Like it was like, no, if I know that I can't work on this in the next like 24 hours, then I'm just going to put it out for a month and worry about it then. Like,
Before we go, I know that you're going to have to head out here
mhm.
soon. Do you work a lot with people who also are working from home? Like, can you talk a little bit about what that's been like for like the last year?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, about half, maybe 60, half of our population of 10,000 was already working from home, like formally, whether they might have popped in the office sometime, maybe. But there's a lot of people that work where we don't have offices, and the west coast of Oregon, or like Wyoming and Montana, those kinds of things. But then we had like another 10 to 20%, I don't know the exact number, that was just in and out of the office from time to time, just either for their work life balance, or they'd come in when they had meetings, or, or again, like sometimes certain childcare things, like one day a week they didn't have a sitter, whatever. So when we transitioned to working from home, you know, it was very interesting because we had a ton of people for whom it was like, this is fine. This is fine. It's my life anyway. Like myself, like, okay, fine. And it was hard to be empathetic to the people who were frustrated at working from home. It's like, I'm doing it for 11 years. Like, put your big girl pants
This
on.
is a
Come
good
on.
life. Don't you
Really.
like it?
And then I have to tell myself, okay, but not everybody likes this. And
Yeah.
and again, like I was saying earlier, not everyone lives in a situation that is conducive to productivity and time to think. And then when you add in children that were homeschooling and things like that. I mean, obviously that's a whole different scenario.
Oh,
Um, but also we have like our younger crowd, like our under 30s, who I know are really struggling. Not only am I seeing it in my organization, but in other industries as well. With that connection, mentoring, really feeling like this is not how I wanted to start my career working at home by myself. Like I wanted that connection. I wanted that. So as part of my job, I'm part of some of our BRGs, our resource groups, and we have one for virtual colleagues, we have one for female colleagues, and then a host of underrepresented communities as well. So I've tried to engage with those groups, kind of just explain how you can connect with people. A large part of well-being is also like the diversity inclusion component, and we have somebody else who extraordinarily manages our diversity inclusion program.
good.
So I don't at all intend to imply that I'm an expert in that field, but we do work closely together because if you do not feel included and if you do not feel represented, then your mental well-being suffers and then your work life suffers, which, as we were talking about before, if you're not being productive, that's a problem for us, but it's also a problem for retention, for engagement, and keeping those things healthy is in everyone's best interest.
When I
So
was,
what
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so what we've really been trying to do, away so much from the leaves and disability component, because for most people, being home solves a lot of their problem, whether it's mobility, whether it's mental health. Um, Again, we see fewer people requesting leave, and we see fewer people with open leaves taking time because they're home and they're comfortable. They're able to mitigate the symptoms that would have been unmanageable in the office, which again benefits us because they're able to be productive, and benefits them because they're not wasting their vacation days that they could be using to actually relax and recharge because they're struggling with anxiety today, or they're struggling with a migraine or something like that. So, as I said, by no means should someone be putting their job above their physical or mental health. But to the extent that we can help people maximize their benefits, working from home helps you maximize your benefits without question. Um, and then, of course, there are people that are just dying to get back to the office. They want to be around people. They don't like working from home for whatever reason.
Yep.
They might have an ideal physical setup, and it's just not how they like to work.
Or some
So
people
we'll be
cannot
glad.
manage the noise in their home. Like they might have yapping
Right.
dogs and like kids who are
Yes.
having special needs or might be loud or something like
Yes.
that. I actually just learned this week of a thing. So I'm renting this little micro apartment thing, whatever they call it. But I I heard the other day someone say, you know how you can rent a hotel? Some hotels you can rent the room by the hour.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a thing. Like there's now you can do like some daytime rentals
Uh-huh.
for
I've heard about that.
work from home for the people who needed a quiet place to go work and nothing sleazy or weird about that.
Right.
Like, a lot of times those rooms are available for many hours in the daytime and they're only
Yes.
being occupied at night. And I can see that being like a really nice way for those hotels to kind of double dip a little bit as far as
Yeah, well, and two, like if you are largely working from home, even if you had some expense around those kinds of things, and even if your company doesn't cover it, when you look at what you're saving, wardrobe, lunches, commute cost, wear and tear, if it's your own vehicle, or time spent on transit, the time alone, is huge. And never mind the fact that you're not paying for gas or commuting
yeah.
cards or whatever. If from time to time you have a little extra expense, you're still coming out way ahead financially in that game.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I would just, I think, like to acknowledge what you talked about when you said you asked, for that extended lunch. I would say, if there's something you're not getting from your employer right now, and they haven't already explicitly said it's off the table, just ask. And even if they can't say yes right now, they might be able to say, can you ask me again in 2 months, or can you ask me again at the new year? Because even if something isn't possible today, it doesn't mean it's never going to be possible. And I think the pandemic has shown us that. How many people, would have loved to work from home and were told we really can't. And the company probably really thought they couldn't until they had to,
Yeah.
right? Necessity is the mother of invention. So I think, and it doesn't mean I'm sitting here as a leave specialist, but it doesn't mean it has to be medical in nature that can help facilitate a process because there are legal requirements when it's medical in nature in many countries, not just in the U.S. But even if it's not, even if it's work-life balance, just ask, because all they can say is no or not yet.
Very good. Sara Hudson with April Malone for Yes, I Work From Home. You are in the Houston metro area. Is there a way that anybody would be able to find you if they had any questions about HR related things? I don't know if I should
Yeah,
have
I'm
but
I am Sara Hudson SPHR on LinkedIn.
Okay,
If anyone wants to chat.
sounds great. Well, thank you so much and appreciate your time with me today. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
April. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.